Are you holding back on travel plans because you're afraid of the language gap? Well, no need to mind the gap if you have Babbel. Speak like a whole new you with Babbel, the language learning app that gets you talking. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you talking a new language in 3 weeks. Because talking is the key to really knowing a language. Babbel is designed for real conversation. And I can say that that's true because I used Babbel before my recent trip. I went on to Germany, which is a language that I never studied before, but I really wanted to be just comfortable with things like navigating my way around a train station or a bus station, to be able to order food in a cafe, or to say I'm sorry if I bump into somebody on the street, and Babbel was perfect for that. So I was able to travel over there with confidence, knowing just a bit more German than I did before. Here's a special holiday deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/vulgar. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/vulgar, spelled BABBEL.com/vulgar. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Bingo Blitz rules!
If your bingo has ads in it,
that's not a bingo.
if it doesn't have the coolest tournaments, mini-games, and the most breathtaking design,
Nope, not a bingo.
if your bingo moment makes you feel so excited that you just want to burst in joy and scream out loud, bingo! Sorry, so you're playing...
Bingo Blitz? Now that's a bingo. Discover a world of excitement with Bingo Blitz, the #1 free bingo game. Download Bingo Blitz and play for free.
Now that's a bingo.
Hi everyone, it's Anne from the Vulgar History Podcast, and this is a special drop here in your regular Vulgar History feed. I wanted to give you a taste of something that I've started doing on Patreon, which is a new Patreon-only podcast series called Anne is Writing a Book, Rebel of the Regency. And so what this is just, it's casual updates from me just as I'm working on writing this book. I'm writing a book about Caroline of Brunswick, the subject of the first ever episode of Vulgar History. It's really exciting to be working on this book, and it's consuming most of my waking thoughts and time. And I just wanted to be able to share kind of what this journey is like with all of you. I mean, the reason I was able to sell a proposal to write a book was largely because of the support of you, the Tits Out Brigade. I mean, a random person being like, hey, can I write a book about Caroline of Brunswick? I don't know how that would do, but I was like, hey, can I write a book about Caroline of Brunswick? I have these like listeners, they're the Tits Out Brigade. They're all going to want to read this book. They all love Caroline of Brunswick. And that was part of why I was able to convince Hanover Square Press to publish this book. Anyway, so I really wanted to bring you along on this journey of writing the book. And also, selfishly, or just like self-servingly, I need to be talking about all this stuff that I'm finding out. And I need to talk about it with people who know what I mean. You know, I have lots of supportive, loving people in my real life. But if I tell one of them, like, oh my God, this is just really giving me like Rochelle with all the Napoleon content. You know, people who are in my life, who sometimes listen to my podcast, don't necessarily have a, encyclopedic memory of all the episodes I've ever done, but you all do. And I really want to be able to make these connections with somebody who gets what I'm talking about. Anyway, so what you're about to hear is one of the episodes of this Patreon podcast, Anne is Writing a Book. This one happens to have special guest star Allison Epstein, who we were like planning to record about Lafayette anyway. And I was like, can I also record this extra thing with you? Because there's so much Napoleon Bonaparte content in this book, and I am kind of losing my mind. And who can I talk about except Allison about a topic like that? Anyway, so this podcast, it's usually just me, but for a special treat, you can hear me and Allison. And to hear more of these Anne is Writing a Book, Rebel of the Regency episodes, you can join my Patreon for free, because this is the thing. Like with this book, I want as many people as possible to read it, and the Tits Out Brigade, I want as many of you as possible to hear, my thoughts and stuff about writing the book. And so I've made this content. This podcast is free on my Patreon. So if you want to hear more episodes of this, you can join my Patreon, which you go to patreon.com/AnneFosterWriter, or like open the Patreon app on your device and look for Anne Foster, and you'll find it there. And then you just join at the free level, and then you can hear more of these episodes there's so many things I'm looking forward to recording and just like yelling about to people who get what I'm talking about, which is all of you. So anyway, enjoy this. This is me yelling about how mad I am that I had to learn about the Napoleonic Wars with friend of the podcast, Allison Epstein. Hello and welcome to Anna's Writing a Book, Rebel of the Regency. And for the first time on this podcast spinoff, I have a guest, and it's Allison Epstein.
Hello, happy to be a guest.
I'm really happy, and also this is necessary because I was going to do an episode of Anna's Writing a Book where I just yelled about Napoleon and how I'm mad that I have to. I wrote a book I think I purchased a book that's called like The History of the Napoleonic Wars, and I'm so mad.
No, you spent money on that?
I'm so mad I have that now. Not as mad as I am that I had to look up what are Whigs and Tories, but
Ugh.
these are the sacrifices I make for our heroine, Carolina Brunswick. But anyway, there's so much Napoleon. And then we were recording something else today anyway. And I'm like, wait, I can bring on Allison for this Napoleon stuff.
To torment me with Napoleon.
But
I've been told this is quality Napoleon content, so I'm excited.
Well, I would say it's Napoleon adjacent content. It's kind of like in Rochelle, it's Napoleon relatives content.
Okay. And they're all also named Napoleon.
Ugh, you can explain that to me when we get to all of them. I'm just like, why? But also you have some context. I believe you have some dates of when he did things or was made emperor or something like that.
In my notes, I have vague Napoleon adjacent timeline business.
Okay, so you can contextualize some of the stuff.
Helps.
And this is technically, if I was paying for any of this, this would be a business expense, this discussion, because you're officially a consultant right now.
I hate that my job is now Napoleon consultant, but I support this.
That's how you're going to be in the acknowledgements.
No!
Okay, I might say thank you, Allison, for explaining the French Revolution to me. That might be what I say.
There we go.
Because that also has to do with it. Turns out everything was happening all at once. I had just kind of thought of Caroline was like bopping around doing her own thing. Meanwhile, other things are happening in the early 1800s. But in fact, they're all connected. And I have to learn about why and how. So, okay, the first Napoleon mention in my book. And listeners, what I have done is brought up the draft of my book, and I did Control F Napoleon. And I'm just going to walk Allison through all the Napoleon of it. Actually, and if you could, in a classic Allison and Anne record a podcast way, if you could keep a tally of how many Napoleon adjacent people we mentioned all together.
I have a Post-it right here for the purpose.
Amazing. Thank you. And I might need that number for my book later, so I appreciate that also. Okay, so the very first, let's see, where are we? We're in, I don't know, Caroline's in England. And she's in England, whatever. So her father, Karl Wilhelm Ferdinand. And I want to let you and the listeners know, for anyone who didn't follow along with my travel blogs, the only way that I'm interacting with anyone in the world right now, by the way, Allison, is by creating content for the internet. I am a hermit not leaving my house. You have been
creating so much content, and there has been so many more alpacas in it than I expected. So
the alpacas... I think when we were leaving there, I told my sister, I'm like, this is the best day of my life. And it's true. I was imagining, I'm like, oh man, herding, like walking with two trained alpacas was like, okay, my alpaca, Raffaello, he was just sneaking leaves. We're walking through like a forest path, and he was just like if I like released the like leash a little bit, he would just be like eating all the leaves at face level. He was just
Can you imagine herding 12,000 untrained llamas?
That was the thing. I was like, okay, I feel pretty good. I feel like pretty competent at like leading this one alpaca. And then I was just like, 10,000? But they are, I'll tell you one more alpaca thing. So they're very much a herd animal. They like to be in a pack.
Is that why they're called alpacas?
Ha ha! Yes. This is Anna's Writing a podcast that is not fact checked. So my sister was with the other alpaca whose name was Marshmallow, which was appropriate because they're both white and so fluffy. When you touch them, they feel just like a ball of like alpaca yarn. Like I was just like, it just grows off of them like that, just like this beautiful fleece. And it's called fleece, not fur. Anyway, so the guide was like Zoe, this like cool 18-year-old German girl. She was like, Marshmallow prefers to be in the lead. And indeed, Marshmallow was just like, I'm the leader. And he was walking with such a prideful posture, just like, I am the leader of this gang of 2 alpacas and 3 humans. So, and then Raffaello was happy to be bringing up the lead, just eating leaves constantly. And at one point, we passed another group of people with alpacas. And Zoe was like, ooh, sometimes they try to like join the other group because they're like, oh, there's the pack. Like, but Marshmallow, I think, was confident enough in his leadership. He's like, no, this is my pack. Although there was one point where we were by a lake and Zoe was like, the alpacas might want to go in the water. And in fact, Marshmallow did. He just like strolled and just stood in the water. my sister's trying to be like, come on. And Marshmallow's just like, no, just chilling in the water. And I thought, 10,000. He was just standing there and would not budge. Raffaello was just like, took the opportunity to just eat grass. Like,
I love them.
the chaos of 10,000.
Just all standing in bodies of water being like, we're not going to Peru today.
So there are 2 at the place. They also had 2 llamas who I did not see, but Zoe described them. She's like, llamas. She's like, she described them as, she said this literally, is like 2 alpacas in a trench coat. Because llamas are just big, but they act exactly like the alpacas do. And she said one of the llamas likes to go in the lake and he will like submerge himself and come back up. And I was like, that would be so heavy. Like all the fleece on a llama drenched in water.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, they're pack animals. They're used to carrying luggage. So it's like, okay, so he's just carrying his own heavy self.
All right.
So it was honestly a dream come true. Like, actually, when I was looking up Braunschweig and I was like, what are some activities we could do? I was like, alpaca farm?
We're
in. I told my sister, I'm like, guess what? We're doing. Okay, no alpacas in this story, tragically.
Alas.
In this book, though, there are numerous donkeys. Caroline really likes to ride a donkey, but we're not talking about that today. So her father, Karl Wilhelm Ferdinand, who in Braunschweig, everyone we talked to used all 3 names. He's he's Sarah Jessica Parker of the time. Karl Wilhelm Ferdinand, great beloved hero of Brunswick. He was like a war hero, and it's sort of one of those sad stories where like all he wanted to do was like be a nerd and read books and like go to university. But they're like, you're the king, you have to lead armies constantly for decades. And he's like, oh, okay. But he was really good at it. Anyway, so at this point, I don't know what year it is, but whatever. Early 1800s, King Frederick William III of Prussia declared war against Napoleon and his army.
Yes.
Do you know what year that is?
It is between 1804 and 1812. I don't know what year, but it's in there.
Okay.
This is the part where everyone in Europe's declaring war on Napoleon.
Well, and this is where I was confused with, this is why I had to get the book, because I'm just like, is this not, so it's not just one long war, it's a bunch of mini wars.
It's the war of the 1 through 6th coalitions, I think.
Yes,
and they
that's
all
what I was
happened
gonna say.
within like 10 years. And I can't tell those apart either. That's just Europe's fighting Napoleon.
Yeah, the coalitions, that's the thing. It's like this country and this country are fighting Napoleon. And then it's like that first country and this 2 other countries are fighting Napoleon. And I'm just like, so it wasn't just consistent. Okay. So they're like, okay, we're going to war. Who's going to lead the war? Oh, Karl Wilhelm Ferdinand, the best war leader. And he's like, dudes, I'm 71 years old. And they're like, yes, you're still alive. So let's do it. So he was appointed commander of the Prussian forces. And then the Prussian forces were defeated. Her father was badly wounded, left nearly blind in one eye. Karl Wilhelm Ferdinand reached out to Napoleon, requesting that Braunschweig could remain neutral in this battle. Napoleon agreed, but only if KWF retired from the Prussian army. And he was like, no, I'm 71 and I'll never stop. Kind of Joe Biden vibes. Anyway, Caroline she loved her dad. He was a girl dad. And she wrote, quote, as long as he could use his limbs and vital air was in him, he would defend his king and country. So she was like proud of him not giving up. Foreshadowing of her not giving up. Mm-hmm. There's some sort of quote that she said at one point that's like, a Brunswicker never accepts defeat. And when I was in Braunschweig, I was like, she said this. Is that like a phrase here? And everyone was like, no.
Could be, though. It's a good one.
Maybe it was 200 years ago. Anyway, her father got sick because of his wounds. And eventually he died, basically.
So,
So,
long story short, Napoleon killed her father.
yes.
And fuck him very much for that. And that's Napoleon adjacent person number 1, Napoleon.
Yes, exactly. Oh, God. I'm gonna read you this is very much the first draft of my book.
Okay.
I'm gonna read you a direct quote from my book that I'm like, "You are a writer." I'm just writing, and I'm gonna go back in and, like, change it, but
Oh god, this is ideas first, words bad draft, I get it.
yeah, no, exactly. So, I'm gonna read you a little quote.
Ooh, sneak
So
peek.
we haven't discussed the Napoleonic Wars in this book so far because Caroline was not interested in the minutiae of military strategy, and this is a book about Caroline. But much like the Whigs and the Tories worming their way in a few chapters back, it is now unavoidable to get into the Napoleon of it all. This is chapter 10. I was so sad when I had to write this.
You made it 10 whole chapters, though. That's pretty good.
I know, it didn't really overlap with her life until her father died. Okay, so her father died, and then her brother, Friedrich, aka the Black Duke.
Ooh, we love a sassy nickname for a dude in a book.
He is great. So outside of the museum I visited there's 2 statues of men on horses, and one is KWF, and the other one is the Black Duke. And he's very recognizable, as I soon learned, because every building I went in, there was so many portraits of the Black Duke. He wears this beret, and he has these like mutton chops, mustache, and his beret is black and has skull and crossbones on it in silver. So,
You know I love a character building hat. Bless this man.
oh, you know what? I'll tell you right now. So the Black Duke, actually, no, I'll tell you why he became the Black Duke. So he was in charge of Brunswick because the dad had died. Anyway, Napoleon wanted to take over all of the German duchies, which he did. And so he took over and invented a new kingdom of Westphalia. This is 1807, ruled over by his brother, Jerome. So this is my question for you, and I don't know if you know. Napoleon's siblings. Is this a situation where it's kind of like when Oliver Cromwell died and his useless son took over and he wasn't as good at stuff as him? Were Napoleon's siblings bad at being leaders?
I don't think they were, like, famously bad at it, but no one's talking about his brothers and the things they're doing. They're kind of just, like, also present, being in charge of things like Spain and Westphalia. So I
Yeah.
get the impression that they were sort of just like, "Oh, my brother gave me a kingdom, let me do whatever he says with it."
I was trying to think of a comparison, and the only one I could really think of is like if Napoleon is like Kim Kardashian, the brothers are kind of like Kendall. It's kind of like, oh, okay,
You are also here.
you also have brown hair, so I guess.
Close enough.
Yeah, but the first time I learned about this was when my sister and I were in the museum in Braunschweig, and we're just like, oh, we're like, oh, the Black Duke, we recognize him now, like pictures of like various other people who we recognized. And then it's like, why is there a portrait of Napoleon here? She's like, oh, that's his that's his brother, Jerome.
Jerome Bonaparte. Don't
Dollar
worry about it.
store Napoleon. So he was put in charge of Westphalia, which included Braunschweig. So, and this is where I think you'll relate a lot to the Black Duke, who developed a raging hatred of Bonaparte and just the French in general.
Love this.
And he was just like, okay, got to wait for the right time to avenge my father's death and reclaim my homeland. Okay, and then we've got the Fifth Coalition.
There's so many.
Basically, this was his opportunity. And he's like, can I join you, the Fifth Coalition? I don't have a country, but I'm the Black Duke, and can I? And they're like, yes, if you pay for your own legion. He's like, I shall. So he mortgaged his principality. I don't know if that means house or like.
I think that means Brunswick.
Anyway, so from that money, he paid for his but he's like, okay, I'm calling upon anyone who hates the French, please join me and let's make a new legion. And so volunteers.
And everyone in Europe was like, yes, you called.
2,000 volunteers arrived. And they had all come from like different armies. So they had different colored jackets. But they're like, well, we all have to match because otherwise it'll be confusing in the battlefield of who is who. So they're like, okay, well, what's the easiest color that we could all dye all these colors? Black. So they all dyed their jackets black. but also Black represented the mourning of their country. And so this legion became known as the Black Brunswickers. And that is why their leader, became known as the Black Duke.
That's so metal. I love that.
Oh my God, it is. Their saying was victory or death.
Fabulous. Never compromise. Always be as goth and intense as possible.
Absolutely, yeah. And remember, they all had the skull and crossbones on as well.
Yeah.
So the Black
This
Brunswickers,
hot topic ass prince, I love him.
He's great. There's a part later in the story where he like flees to England, and then they're like, okay, the Black Brunswickers like can become like satellite members of the British military. And Caroline is like, it was so sad. He had to cut off his mutton chops and change out of his black into a red coat. And I'm like, it is sad, Caroline, because he was hot. Anyway, so I wrote Friedrich's regiment filled with righteous fury. Descended upon Germany and briefly reclaimed control of Braunschweig. And this is why he is the national hero of there. And his grave, he's in the same crypt as where Caroline is buried. And she's got this beautiful, like, it's like a coffin, I guess you would say, but it's covered in like red velvet and there's like a crown on top and it's very like elegant and lovely looking. And then his in the back is covered in black velvet with like silver tassels all over it, 2 black flags crossed on top of it, like on the ground, right under like a window. And I was told by my tour guide, like she had to unlock the crypt to let us in. She said it used to be open to everybody, but too many people in the 21st century would go down there and go to the Black Duke's grave and like pull off like one little thread as a souvenir because people still love this guy.
That's amazing, honestly. Yeah. I want to be so famous that they have to lock my crypt so people don't keep tomb raiding me because they love me so much. That's amazing.
200 years after you live.
Yes.
Yeah. And everyone there just calls him the Black Duke. Anyway, but he's not dead yet. So he briefly reclaimed it. But then Napoleon's forces were like, the hell you do? And then the Black Brunswickers like fought their way. They like fled, but like in a fighting way because there was Napoleon troops everywhere. So they held off the attacking armies and made their way to England. So again, Jerome Napoleon would be the second Napoleon.
Got him.
And then, and then also just mention Napoleon himself. Like when was he made emperor? Do you have that date?
The first time or the second time?
When was there the big coronation event? The first time. Yeah. So he had this big coronation event, and goddamn Prinny was like, I need to have a party that cool. He's like, so he was made regent, but there's not like a coronation when you're a regent because your father is incredibly ill. So he was like,
yeah, incredibly. It's in bad taste to celebrate your ascension to the regency while your father is dying. Like, please be chill, sir.
But he's like, oh, but I gotta be as cool as Napoleon. So anyway, so he had like a big party and didn't invite Caroline. That was the next Napoleon mention. Oh yeah. He had been impatiently waiting to hold his own Napoleon-level coronation and was determined to show up the French emperor with a luxurious party of his own. Anyway, but he didn't let Caroline attend because they were estranged. And he also didn't let their teenage daughter Charlotte attend because she was more popular than him and he didn't want her to take attention away from him. Because he is a bitch. Let's see. So the next, Napoleon was defeated by Wellington's troops. When was that? Do you have that?
I do. That was 1815.
Yeah. So celebrations were held across London. Windows were lit with candles. People took to the streets in joy. Yay, monarchy is restored in France. I don't know. I guess they're just happy Napoleon was defeated. I don't think they're like, yay, monarchy is restored. Who is that guy?
that was a fuck Napoleon party is what that was.
Absolutely. Okay. So then eventually Caroline leaves England. And part of the reason why she couldn't leave England until now was because of wars.
Yeah.
Oh no, but I have one more thing. So the Treaty of Amiens was in like the early 1800s. And that was a period where England and France agreed to not be at war with each other. And it lasted for like a year. I hate that I know the Treaty of Amiens. Oh, is that not common knowledge?
Oh yeah. That thing that Anne Foster in particular is so interested in reading about.
No, but here's where it pertains. So because the war was on pause, that meant that the dock workers were all fired, or like they didn't need as many dock workers in London because there wasn't ships coming and going all the time. And so this one particular dock worker, he and his wife had just had a baby, and now they couldn't like pay to have a baby because he was out of work because of the peace. And so, but they were like, well, apparently Caroline of Brunswick, we've heard that she's really cool, and maybe like she could like petition on our behalf to like get a new dock worker job for you. So his wife, which is like a thing that she did do, she was very philanthropic. So this is while she's still in England. Anyway, so the guys, the unemployed dock worker's wife, and their young toddler son. I don't know why she took the toddler son with her, but anyway, she like walked, some great distance to Caroline's house to be like, please, I guess just to look like really like Fantine and Les Miserables as possible, to just be like, oh, please, I'm so poor. Like, won't you take mercy on me and my starving little child? Anyway, so they went to Caroline, and Caroline was like, starving little child, you say? What if I
Oh no, Caroline.
adopt him? And that became Willie Austin.
She's so predictable. As soon as you said toddler child, I was like, she's going to steal that child, isn't she?
She did. And that's Willikins, Willie Austin, who like she raised for the rest of his life. And that was the one, the delicate investigation was like, is this seriously Caroline's child? Did Caroline have a secret baby? That's that baby. And we can owe that all to Napoleon for making the dock workers unemployed.
Huh.
Okay. So anyway, eventually she got to leave England, and she had permission to go to Brunswick. And so that is where she went. And she arrived there, and everyone in Germany was just like, Napoleon's gone. We're so happy. Anyway, so she went back, and she stayed with the Black Duke, who was like in charge there again. Everyone is just like happy to be there. But eventually she was like, oh, right, I remember now why I hated living here and I wanted to leave. So then she left Brunswick. Okay, and this is where we're getting into the Napoleon adjacent people. Because at around this time, and my guess is that Napoleon had like been responsible for like stealing her homeland, killing her beloved father, but she hated Prinny and England so much that she flipped around to being like a stan for Napoleon. She was like, Napoleon is my guy now, because
he also hates Prinny. So
yeah. And this is
fair enough.
Yeah. So, but this is confusing to some people, because they're like, you'd think that he killed her, like because of what he did to her homeland and to her father. It's like, why would she ever like him? But it's like, but more so, it was a way to.
It's whatever's going to make my husband the maddest is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
I find that very relatable, actually.
It truly is. And now for a quick advertising break.
As a podcast network, our first priority has always been audio and the stories we're able to share with you. But at Realm, we also sell some pretty cool merch, and organizing that was made both possible and easy with Shopify. When you think about successful businesses like Aloe or Allbirds or Skims, an often overlooked secret is the business behind the business that makes selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. That's because nobody does selling better than Shopify. It's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret that's definitely worth talking about is that Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%. That's more happy customers and way more sales going. If you're hoping to grow your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm. As a podcast network, our first priority has always been audio and the stories we're able to share with you. But at Realm, we also sell some pretty cool merch, and organizing that was made both possible and easy with Shopify. When you think about successful businesses like Aloe or Allbirds or Skims, an often overlooked secret is the business behind the business that makes selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. That's because nobody does selling better than Shopify. It's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret that's definitely worth talking about is that Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%. That's more happy customers and way more sales going. If you're hoping to grow your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm.
This episode is brought to you by Lifetime. Parenting vlogger Ruby Frankie was a model mother to her following of over 2.5 million people until she began to follow the guidance of family counselor Jody Hildebrandt. Based on a true story, watch as the influencer becomes the influenced by a master manipulator. Mormon Mom Gone Wrong. The Ruby Frankie story. Premiering Saturday at 8. Part of Truly Unbelievable Movies. A ripped from the headlines event. Only on Lifetime.
In the California Road Trip Republic, we believe you take adventure for a ride. Whether coastal cruising, mountain motoring, or redwood roaming, discover beauty around every turn. Your road trip can kick off from anywhere.
Starting route.
But it should always start at visitcalifornia.com. Then buckle up, crank those tunes, and discover why California is the ultimate playground.
And we're back. Okay, so in Strasbourg, France, she encountered this guy, François Etienne Christophe Kellerman, who had been a hero of the French side of the wars, fighting on Napoleon's side. In fact, he had led the French troops at the battle that her father died in. And people were like, "Ugh, this is going to be awkward." But she's like, "No, it's chill. It's cool. I like Napoleon now." So when she arrived, he was called upon to do a ceremonial review of the 8,000 troops lined up to greet her. And they were all like, what's she going to do? But she was gracious to him. Yeah, so now she just loved French. She loved Napoleon. And then she was making her way basically to Italy across Europe. And so everywhere she went, though, she met the local dignitaries, and they hosted a dinner for her, included attending a dinner alongside Napoleon's wife, Empress Marie Louise.
Person number 3.
Yeah. So this is after he dumped Josephine. He married Marie Louise. I don't know much about her.
My recollection is that Marie Louise was the boring one, but that might be unfair to Marie Louise.
Well, and she might be boring, but the two women hit it off to the extent that they sang duets at the post-dinner celebrations, which I imagine is like karaoke.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but Marie Louise could be boring, but also Caroline had a real knack of just people liked her. They liked to spend time with her.
She had enough personality for 2 people. It's fine.
Exactly. So Marie Louise was there. And then, wait, why do I have my next Napoleon? Oh, yeah. I just have right there, I have a footnote. Napoleon was in exile in Elba at this point. So Marie Louise is just kind of being like, oh, my husband's in exile. I don't know. I'll just go to dinner parties, I guess. And then she goes to Naples, which is ruled over by King Joachim-Napoleon, who had been a marshal in Napoleon's army and was now married to Napoleon's sister, Carolina.
There we go. Joachim. Isn't that the same name as Jerome?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's only 4 names at this story. They're all Napoleon.
Because Joaquin Phoenix played Napoleon, right?
It's true. I will not watch that movie, but I'm told it was bad.
As are many things Joaquin Phoenix does lately. So she went to Naples, and Britain had been like, don't go to Naples. They're on Napoleon's side. And she's like, go to Naples? Because they're on Napoleon's side? Great. So she went there, and they all hit it off with each other. So anyway, this was described by somebody, the 4 months in Naples as a time of continuous fete and rivalry. Caroline recommended her favorite dark. So Caroline was blonde. She had blonde eyelashes, blonde eyebrows. She came from a family of people who were very blonde, in like Targaryens from Game of Thrones type way.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw numerous portraits of this family, and it is startling. And the blondness is like the Targaryens due to inbreeding. Anyway, but Caroline, so like she was in her goth phase. She was dyeing her hair dark because
To be like the Black Duke?
to be like the Black Duke, to be like, because she was in Italy, she wanted to fit in.
There you go.
She also liked to draw her eyebrows on very dark. It's just like any blonde pop star has a dark hair phase.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was just like, I'm not blonde anymore. Now I have dark hair. So
now
anyway,
I'm edgy.
the hot topic of it all. Yeah, you're right. It is her and the Black Duke. Anyway, so she also really always liked buying presents for people. So she ordered 50 bottles of her favorite dark hair dye as a gift to Napoleon's sister. Which is a thing called Colley's Chemical Cream.
I bet you that thing had so many poisons in it.
I know. I was going to say it's like it contains arsenic mixed with cocaine. But Queen Carolina, so there had been somebody had written this like book that pretended to be Caroline's memoirs, but it wasn't her memoirs. It was this Irish guy had been hired by Prinny to write memoirs to make Caroline look bad.
That's actually incredible.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I forget if I have acquired that yet. There's another book that I have acquired. Thank you, the Internet Archive. But anyway, so when Caroline got to Italy, a lot of people had read that and they were so excited to meet her because she was like so scandalous. They thought they kind of knew her life. Anyway, Queen Carolina, Napoleon's sister, apparently kept a copy of the memoirs on her bedside table.
Aw, besties.
Yeah, so they're friends. They're at a party. And then Napoleon's mistress, Countess Waluska, who is Polish. And I was like, wait a minute, I remember her because one of Rochelle's lovers was Napoleon's like illegitimate Polish son. So,
there you go.
Anyway, so Countess Waluska had visited Napoleon in exile on Elba at some point. And then she arrived at a party Caroline was attending. So Caroline was just like, oh my God, Napoleon's mistress. That's on Allison's tally sheet. I'm so excited.
It is.
Anyway, so she arrived, not bearing news, but she arrived simultaneous to when the news arrived that Napoleon had escaped from Elba 7 days before this party. And Joachim and King Caroline were suspected of having known that he was going to do that because that was like Caroline was his sister. And so basically they had known that he was going to do this. So just Countess Waluska arrived at the party and was like, guess what? It happened. And everyone at the party's like, oh my God, Napoleon was freed. And Caroline was like, yes, Napoleon was freed and I was involved.
I helped.
Caroline was like, yep, that was me. I'm friends with him. I also knew he was going to do that. Number one Napoleon fan, Caroline of Brunswick.
That's me.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Brittany? I'll say it louder for you. Number one fan.
So not many believed her, but there was this Javert type spy who Prinny had hired to follow Caroline, and he became like obsessed with Caroline. And he believed all of her weird stories, and he was like, "Oh my God, this is great for my spy diary." Caroline helped Napoleon escape, so he was like investigating like what was her involvement in Napoleon's escape. So then Napoleon will tell people what. So he escaped from Elba, and then what?
Yeah, he escaped from Elba and he came back to France because Elba is like 12 miles away from France. He could have swam this if he wanted to. And he showed up and said, hi, guess what? I'm going to be emperor again. And this was called the 100 days because he stayed emperor again for exactly 100 days.
Mm-hmm.
And he got some of his old followers back and started trying to like go back to the way things were. And every single country in Europe said, absolutely the fuck not. We are not going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they challenged him at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815 and said, hey, guess what? We're going to defeat you. And they did. And Napoleon was then sent into exile significantly farther than 12 miles away, like off the coast of Angola in Western Africa.
Wow,
so,
that's where
it's a ways. Yes.
So during these 100 days, it was kind of, they didn't know it was going to be 100 days.
No, they didn't call it the 100 days until it had been 100 days.
So it's just like, oh my God, Napoleon's back in power. So the whole thing is like Joachim and Carolina were expected that Naples was going to like be on his side and support him. And then Britain was like, the Princess of Wales is in Naples. She should probably not be there because we're going to be at war with them soon. So a frigate was sent to fetch her and remove her. So, and she's like, that's cool. I'll just like travel around, whatever, and have a nice time. She got her. So at this point, she had her boyfriend, Bartolomeo Pergami, 6'5", described as having mustaches from here to London, here being Italy. He was super hot, super tall. And she got him, when she was like ceremonial processing, she got him to wear an outfit that looked like Joachim's outfit and to sort of like impersonate Joachim.
Why not?
Yeah, that's what she did. And so Napoleon is just like doing, yeah. So during these 100 days, tragically, this is where the Black Duke died in combat.
R.I.P. to a real one.
Yeah, at the Battle of Quatre Bras, which is like shortly before Wellington defeated him at Waterloo. So he like almost made it.
It was so close.
Mm-hmm. And then the next Napoleon thing, because guess what? We're not done.
Napoleon's done, but Caroline's not.
So involvement in Napoleon's escape. And then next, 2 days after the Black Duke died was Waterloo.
No!
So, yeah.
It makes me so sad. I love him.
Okay, so then Caroline is, so she lives in Italy for a while, and then she's just like chilling in Italy, having a nice time. And then she decides to go on this like grand tour, basically, because it's very relatable. She's like in her 40s and she had never been able to travel. And she's like, I want to see all the sights. I want to go to all the places. And she was just going to all the places. And en route, she's like, wait, our ship, she's like in the Mediterranean. This is my chapter, Eat, Fuck, Pray. Eat, pray, fuck. Oh, you help me with this.
Eat, pray, fuck, certainly. Yeah.
Eat,
because the alternative is eat, fuck, love. And that's just redundant at that point.
Yeah. So she's going on her fuck tour of the Mediterranean. And she's like, oh my God, we're going to pass by Elba. So then she made the ship captain stop in Elba so she could like see Napoleon's former exile house because she's like a super fan.
Yeah.
And then she was described as running out of the house holding a billiards cue.
I love her. I don't relate, but I do love historical looting. I think I should rephrase, don't take that out of context. I don't love historical looting. But I love
white
this
on
kind.
White looting. Yeah.
Yes. This kind that's hilarious. Yes.
Yeah. And then later she had like...
Can I put down the billiards cue as the sixth Napoleon adjacent person?
Yes.
Okay, great.
But also in a thing that I think you would appreciate as well. Caroline was really into like flipping villas at this point. She would just like move to a villa and like fix it up and then like move to another villa. And in one of her villas, she was designing a billiards room, presumably to display this cue prominently. Anyway, so her boyfriend, Bartolomeo Pergami, more of his family started living with her, including his mom, who Caroline got everyone calling Madame Mère, like Mrs. Mother. And she did that because that is apparently what Napoleon called his mother.
We're putting Ghost of Napoleon's mother on the list.
Yeah. Okay, and so now we're into 1817. And she gets to Rome, and she was provided housing at the Villa Ruffinella, a property owned by Prince Lucien Bonaparte, younger brother of Napoleon.
I was gonna say, I don't even know that one. There were surprisingly more Napoleon brothers than I ever expected there to be.
There was like a Duggar amount of
Napoleon they just keep
brothers.
showing up.
Yeah. So that's like as far as I've got in my writing thus far. Well, and actually that's the latest Napoleon mention. Like, how could there be more at this point? But I feel like there will be more at some point.
He doesn't die until 1821, so there's still time. And then his nephew becomes emperor, whatever the fuck. So.
And then Rochelle fucks him. And then like part 2 of this discussion we're having is the Rochelle episode. Because that's
where everybody else comes in.
all the other Napoleons. But actually, so Napoleon died 1821. Caroline also died 1821. Rochelle, born 1821.
To pick up the mantle where Caroline
To pick up the
left
mantle of Napoleon. Love. I will just say as well, so when Napoleon died, Prinny, somebody came and it was like, Prinny, your bitterest enemy has died, meaning Napoleon. And Prinny said, is she?
I hate him so much. It's my least favorite story about him because it combines him being a dick with him thinking he's funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate it.
And it also includes Napoleon.
It's 3 things I hate.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. But this was like when I was going through the fuck tour era, and I'm just like, okay, Napoleon's wife, Napoleon's mistress, Napoleon's brother. I'm just like, this is too many Bonapartes. I don't want this in my book. Why is this happening? I didn't know
we got 8 Bonapartes, including the Bonaparte pool cue. So,
thank you. 8. Too many. It's too many. Yeah, it's writing this book is, a journée, as you well know, as a person who has written books. But every day it's just like, okay, because this draft I'm doing, I'm going like chronological order. So sometimes it's like a fun chapter, like Caroline goes to Tunisia to
ride a donkey somewhere
to rescue the white slaves. And then
such a lot.
where it's just kind of like, oh, Caroline. And the next chapter is just like, Prinny is awful. And I'm like so mad. And I like go to bed and I can't go to sleep because I'm like so mad at Prinny. And the next day it's just like something charming. Like you never know. But the day when I was just like, I tragically opened like the Napoleon Wikipedia page. And I was like, no.
It's awful because the amount of words that they spend on all of the coalitions is just disproportionate to the amount that I give a fuck. I just want the date and the fact. Stop telling me about the maneuvers.
Oh my God, it's so much stuff. Actually, where I found some good stuff about the Black Duke, which I needed to because there's not a lot of English language sources about the Duke of Brunswick, as it turns out.
Incredibly.
Was this Roblox wiki. Because there's this like Roblox game where you do the Napoleonic Wars, I guess.
Okay.
And it's like guys, I assume guys, who are very interested in the minutia of war maneuvers. And so there's like a page about all the battles and what they did. So you can like program it and make your little Roblox guys do the battles. Anyway, there's a page on there.
I'm glad these people have hobbies.
There's a page on there about the Black Brunswickers and about the Black Duke, and it had some information that I was trying to find. So will that be in the bibliography of my book? Stay tuned.
I hope so.
Roblox wiki. Well, and at first I was like, wow, this is just a wiki about the Napoleonic Wars. I wonder why the pictures all look like little Legos. And it took me quite a while to realize, like, oh, this is a wiki about a Roblox video game that is doing the Napoleon. I don't understand exactly, but it was helpful to me.
Incredible. I love this.
Anyway, thank you for walking through with me this. That's 8 too many. No, I think I'm okay with the billiards cue. 7 too many Bonapartes for my liking. But Caroline's like spite fandom, I do appreciate.
Mm-hmm. I do love that for her. If I don't love it for you, because then you have to read about Napoleon.
Yeah. He's just like, you know how big his tomb is? It's so big.
Yes, it's like so big.
It's like a whole house. It's like,
it's so unnecessary.
Ugh, France. Anyway, this is still very confusing, but we're going to be talking about the French Revolution in the next thing we're recording. So
let's go.
Anyway, thank you, Allison. Thank you, Patreons who are listening to all of this. I promise my book has exactly that much Bonaparte in it and no more.
It has more Roblox than it has Bonaparte. So.
The Napoleon content of my book is, I would say, less than 1% of the full amount of the book. Honestly, like, I don't know what was worse, the day I looked up the Napoleon Wikipedia page or the day that I looked up the Whigs and Tories Wikipedia page. I was just like,
that's a toss-up, man.
I could have happily, and I had happily been living my life not having to understand either of those things. And then one day I did. But, I grew as a person. Anyway, thank you, Allison. We're going to go record something else now. Bye.
Bye.
So that is a taste of my new spin-off podcast series. Anne is writing a book, Rebel of the Regency. And I do want to say I called the series that because hopefully I'll write lots of other books and then there'll be a spin-off podcast. Anne is writing a book, whatever my next book is about. Maybe it's going to be about Lola Montez. Who knows? Anyway, so if you want to hear more episodes of just me, just talking shit about Napoleon or talking about whatever it is that is on my mind as I'm working on writing this book, which is again, consuming all of my time. Actually, Hepburn's just about to jump up onto the table next to where I'm talking. She makes a lot of appearances on this podcast because she's basically a co-author on this book. The first episode, one of the episodes of this, Anne is writing a book, Rebel of the Regency. Hepburn jumps up and starts sneezing directly into the microphone. So if you want some more Hepburn content, you're going to get that there. Anyway, thank you all for being in the Tissa Brigade. Thank you all for listening. And if you want to join me on this journey of writing this book, then look up, there's a link in the show notes, but also just go to patreon.com/AnneFosterWriter or open your Patreon app and look for Anne Foster. And if you join at the free membership level, you can hear all these episodes as they go on. The book is due February 1st. So between now and then, you can listen to me say a lot of stuff about what the writing process has been like and all the interesting things I'm learning about iconic heroine Carolina Brunswick. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this special bonus episode. And until next time, pants on, tits out. Vulgar History is researched, written, and hosted by Anne Foster. That's me. The editor is Christina Lumagi. Theme music is by the Severn Duo. The Vulgar History Show image is by Deborah Wong. Transcripts are written by Aveline Malik. Find transcripts of recent episodes at vulgarhistory.com.
What's up, everyone? It's Noah Daniels.
Hey, y'all, I'm JJ.
Hey, guys, it's Kat.
And we're your hosts of the Real Hauntings podcast, where we bring on guests to share their first-hand encounter ghost stories and supernatural experiences. Now on to the trailer.
I've been warned to not tell this story, but I think because of the way it ends, it's okay to tell this story, because some people say that with certain entities, to speak of them or talk about them or in any way portray them as powerful will attract them to other people. The creepiest thing about it to me is a lot of times it would wait for me to notice it. It would just lay its arm out like this, and then I'd be like, where is it? Where is it? And then I'd see it, and then it would just slither back.
For more information on the Real Hauntings, Real Ghost Stories podcast, make sure you check out real.fm to learn more about our podcast and many other amazing podcasts.
Nowadays, trends and news cycles change faster than we can blink. But there are some things that withstand the test of time. And if you're looking for a connection to something timeless, and maybe also a glimpse of life at a slower pace, I believe everyone can relate to the very human experiences explored in Jane Austen's novels. And that's where I come in. My name is Alison Larkin. I'm a writer, comedian, and narrator and host of the Jane Austen podcast with Allison Larkin. I spent a lot of my childhood in the part of England where Jane Austen lived and wrote, and now that I live in the States, nothing gives me a sense of homecoming quite like narrating her books. On this show, you'll listen to award-winning narration. I'll give myself a pat on the back for that, as well as conversations with actors, writers, and other fascinating people who all share a passionate love for Jane Austen. So please, join me as we embark on a wonderful journey through Jane Austen's work. Be sure to listen and subscribe to the Jane Austen podcast with Alison Larkin, wherever you get your podcasts.
Listening to a podcast should be time well spent, and I promise it will be if you'll give this podcast a try. It's called Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and in every episode, I talk with leading experts on topics I know you will find fascinating. From why people can't keep secrets, what your favorite music says about you, why your pet acts in strange ways, and so much more. Something You Should Know is designed to give you information you can use in your life and give you great intel that you can share with others. I'm told it's a binge-worthy podcast. And with over 1,000 episodes, there's a lot to binge on. Something You Should Know has been ranked in the top of the Apple Podcast charts consistently for a long time. I know you're going to like this. I just need to get you to try it. Something You Should Know. It's available wherever you listen to podcasts.